Girls, Musical Aviator and Silverbird Actual here. Very first podcasty thing. And I say thing because who knows what this will turn into. First episode, you never know what's going on. So I've asked a few people questions on my channel, and we've probably got other things to talk about as well. How about you?
Yeah, I shortlisted the questions, so if you don't blame Trent, blame me. I'm a horrible person. Yeah, I'm driving a train, so cool time to be alive.
Indeed, and I'm just releasing the audio mostly, so that does two things. Firstly, I don't have to worry about what's on the screen. Secondly, I also don't have to worry about uploading a large file to YouTube, because I've just finished uploading the Cross the Pond video, which is 10 hours long, and it took me 7 whole days. Because the internet here in Australia sucks.
Move to England.
That's the other funny thing, the time zone. It's, not quite 8 in the morning for me, and you're going on to midnight, so...
Yep, 20 to 11.
Cool. The time zones suck and internet sucks. Anyway, what have we got to do?
So, obviously we had a few questions by your viewers, and we sort of came up with a few things to talk about as well. Just because, obviously, there's things and stuffs to be discussed.
That there is.
Such as the age-old P3D versus FSX debate. Which is better? Which would you go for, and why?
Good old P3D versus FSX. FSX obviously is a fairly old product, and P3D developed from it, thanks to Lockheed Martin buying the right there. It's technically not meant for entertainment, so you're not allowed to have fun in P3D. Lol. But
No.
yeah, that's right. But I've used both recently, and I'm finding P3D is very nice. I'm not getting texture blurries on my land class, which is the first time that's ever happened. I was just looking outside the window on my first couple of flights going, there's something strange about the textures there. Oh yeah, that's right. They're very well defined. So, yeah. Good one. That's definitely a plus one for P3D. And it's a little more stable. I don't get the jitteries when you're turning... Because I noticed that in FSX, when you're literally turning the aeroplane, you get a little bit of stutters in your frame rate. You don't get that in P3D. So, all in all, I'd say P3D is a more refined FSX.
Yeah, I've got to say, I agree with what you're saying. With the whole, it's not, it's obviously it's the old product. My opinion on the whole thing is we should scrap the whole FSX engine and start again. And it's sort of a big step to take. However, it's something that Dovetail have done recently with Train Sim. And they basically took the whole game into Unreal Engine. And it's a whole new ball game. Like, I'm in the old Train Sim currently, but the Unreal version's significantly improved. And I've sort of the opinion that I think it's about time we scrap the whole engine because it does have its flaws. But that's just me, I guess.
Yeah, it does have its flaws, and its biggest flaw is 32-bit. However many times you see that out of the memory area when you're flying into whatever airport after a good long haul in your PMDG airplanes, and yeah.
You always save at 10,000 feet, about 40 miles out. That's my personal advice for that one. But yeah,
Just right about,
for me,
unfortunately, that's right about where the air traffic control don't want you to stop.
at the end of the day, I'm sort of the person who annoys every single ATC under the sun. So there we go. I fell asleep at the helm. I got kicked off for not talking because I got confused with the whole non-controlled airspace thing. Yeah, fun times. Let's change the P3D versus FSX debate up a bit because I think we're pretty much agreed on this one, and change it to P3D versus X-Plane. Now, it's going to be a bit of a one-sided one, really, because you don't do much X-Plane.
It's worse than that. It's literally I haven't touched X-Plane. I've got friends around, like one guy down the road. You've probably seen him on my chat. He's even got a question, maybe. IS APAC. although it's a silly question. Um, sorry. But yeah, I've been around to his house and tried like P3D with um, a VR device with Fly Inside, and it was very interesting to see that technology. But he doesn't use X-Plane either, so I've literally never touched an X-Plane.
Yeah, for me, I'm quite a defender of X-Plane. I was actually supposed to be flying X-Plane right now, but it broke on me because, fun times. Yeah, it's, for me, at the moment, it's the hipster flight sim. It's the one that isn't cool yet.
Yeah.
And it deserves a lot more love than it gets because it's, on paper, it's brilliant. It's much more realistic flight dynamics, it's 64-bit for crying out loud. It's what we all want, but nobody seems to go for it because it doesn't have the support that P3D and and FSX have got in terms of the very nice paywares.
Yeah, good to kind of say that P3D cheated a bit and got all of FSX's support.
Yeah, very much it did, and that's a bit of a, shall we say, a point of annoyance for me, shall I say? But yeah, and I think with X-Plane, no one's going to go to it because it's such a massive investment. However, it's brilliant at what it does, and it should get a lot more TLC.
Yeah, it'd be nice if it had better add-on support systems. I do see that recently, I think it was December or so, that they've finally got themselves a proper GPS that works. Thanks to, I think it was it Real Air or Reality XP, one of them. And yeah, more aeroplanes that actually have avionics that work like the real aeroplane does. I know they're getting close with a few of the add-ons, particularly those 737s and the MD-80, but I looked at a few of those reviews of the MD-80 and it was a little bit disappointing the first time around. I know it's getting updated, I think it was last week or so.
Yeah, I think what we've got to remember is these are the MD-80, obviously rotate sim was a little bit disappointing to start off with. But it has got a lot better. I own it. When I first got it, it wasn't the greatest flight sim add-on of all time, I'll be honest. However, it was a long way from being the worst. I actually really quite enjoyed flying it just because it was an MD-80. And the flight dynamics, as say, in X-Plane are a lot different. And I think the flight dynamics, if it was just down to the flight dynamics, they would have nailed it. But there was a lot of little things they did, which had they not done, it would have been much, much better. But there we go. I guess that's the nature of nature of the beast, I guess. But they're showing a resolve to get it better, and I like to see that because a lot of flight sim developers will go, well, we've shoved the product out there, it's making us money, that's all we care about. And at the end of the day, that's brilliant that it's making you money. However, when somebody else comes along and makes the same thing, you're not going to have an easier time getting it. You're making a new one that people are going to buy because they're going to go, well, you didn't support the last one very well. But again, that's my thoughts.
Yep,
that's just my thoughts.
How do you compare the Rotate Sim MD-80 to, for instance, our 717, our infamous incomplete 717?
I wouldn't, because the 717, I think that they didn't, when TFDI put the 717 out, they said, look, there's bits we still need to work on to get this done, but we'll get it to you. And they have. There's no two ways about it. They've pulled through on that, and they're currently patching it now. Due to the nature of the fact that you can't make flight sim development a full-time job very easily. They're not coming out at a blistering pace, but they're improving it, and that's kind of what I like seeing the commitment there, I guess, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's true. We've had they've done more than one update a month so far, so it's been updating all the time. Exactly. But there were a lot of features missing that were surprisingly missing.
I think as well, there's two ways you can do a flight sim add-on. There's the TFDI way, which is what they've done is they've put something that's a little bit incomplete out, perhaps, but still very good for what it is. Or there's the Quality Wings approach of it's not ready, we're not pushing it out to you, and you can't make people happy no matter either way. So you can't make people happy with
Yeah,
this
that's
one.
true. That's right. So you've either got one that's not quite complete, but we'll keep updating it every month or so, and then there's the other method, which is like, yeah, it's not ready, and we'll wait for about 3 or 4 years.
Precisely. And as well, if they push it out the door before it's 100% there, then at least we can look at it and go, they're looking to get it working for us, and as well, we've bought it, given them however many dollars for it. That's now going to support them to make it better and be able to put more time into it. So, again, that's my 10 cents.
Yeah, that makes sense. Damned if you do and damned if you don't kind of stuff.
Precisely. So, the next sort of talking point for us, I'm going to segue us nice and gently along, is going to be other sims. So, what other simulators do you play? Do you think you'd like to play? That kind of good stuff.
Cool. So you've probably seen 1 or 2 videos of mine on the good old world of subways from Aerosoft, the London Underground one. I think I like that because it's just one single train, one single route. Get used to it. Also, subways that go in the London Underground kind of remind me a little bit of my little city loop here in Melbourne, in a roundabout kind of bizarre way.
Let's not start you on that one. Let's not start you.
Yeah. I think that's one main reason that I don't really go into the train sims, because there's very little Australian content, and the stuff that is there is usually third-party add-ons from freeware developers that have made, something that looks like Flight Sim has been ported over into train sim.
To be honest, I've got to say I agree with you. I own pretty much every single piece of UK route DLC for this game, and I drive it really quite regularly. I've learned to drive certain routes by heart, and that's my new thing of route learning. If like the American routes, I'll run them once or twice, but it doesn't really catch my imagination. And I agree with you in saying you've got to tie it back to something that's relevant to you. So, like, I'm at the moment driving London to Peterborough, and I've done this journey in the real world many times, and that kind of ties it back in for me. Whereas I can see for you, you don't really have that, and I can sort of see where you're coming from with saying, actually, you know what, not quite for me.
Yep. And I remember ages and ages ago, this must have been like in the 1990s, the oldest train sim that I can think of, the old Microsoft one. There was someone who put out Blue Mountains in the Sydney metropolitan area, or just outside the Sydney metropolitan, and I used to drive that thing into the ground, up and down the mountain. It's the only Australian thing that I actually managed to find that was of any good quality. But I don't see that in the current ones. There's just nothing in Australia.
Yeah, it's I forget. I think it was Matt Pedalston. We had like the talk of them expanding into different countries and continents, and the problem they've got is, the Australian trains, Australian platforms, Australian everything's is going to look very different to anything in the rest of the world.
Yeah, pretty much.
Same as if I made a route in America and used British kind of bits for it, it would look weird as anything. But if I made you have to make the assets for it. It's just, is it worth the investment to them?
Yeah, and probably the Australian market is pretty small, so they're not going to get much money out of it.
Exactly. But things like you have dabbled in the old Euro trucks, though. I seem to remember.
Yep, I've got Euro truck installed still, and every once in a while I'll go for it, but it feels like VFR flying without the flying.
Yeah, I've got to say, I really I went through a period of grinding Euro truck like anything. If I look at my Steam right now, which I can't do for some reason, I've got some, so I can't, I can't put my Steam up there because I'm driving a train, but you know, I played the game for about 200 or 300 hours, and then burnt out on it, and I really struggle to play the game now.
Yeah, that's fairly
yeah.
true. And the simulation of the world isn't complete, so you kind of sometimes feel cheated that driving from, you know, one end of UK to the other end of the UK takes about 20 minutes.
I've got to say I prefer that, because I've driven from one end of the UK to the other, and I now died of boredom.
Yeah.
So, you know, grant you, I was 12 at the time, but still, and yeah, I can sort of see why then, they scale it down.
Yeah, that makes sense from a gameplay perspective, but from a fully simulated perspective. But I guess it's not really a fully simulated trucking experience anyway. It's a game.
And like, for the bulk of the people that play Euro Truck, they can't afford to sit down for 2 or 3 hours and drive a truck.
This is quite true, yeah. And I can also imagine myself, like, often I think about driving on Euro Truck, and then I think about how boring driving is, because, I drive in the real world sometimes, so why do a simulation of that?
I went into Euro Truck driving. My profiles have all got everything maxed out except the journey distance, because I really don't want to be sitting down for more than half an hour of driving.
Yep, quite true.
It's just boring.
I think I've got a video somewhere on my channel about not Euro, not truck, not simulator, where I'm driving a car like through Sydney.
Yeah, it's I don't get to drive in the real world yet, so but it's I mean, I can see both sides of the coin with it. I don't drive in the real world for just medical reasons, but yeah, it's fun times.
Indeed.
I'd say. Right, so Q&A time. Your viewers submitted some questions. I've pulled the best ones out. If I didn't choose your question, blame me. Don't blame Trent. I'm a horrible person. I don't have a soul, but I like you, puppy, still. So, I kind of had to find questions that we could answer without spending 3 hours talking about it. First question coming up for you, Trent, is what job do you do?
What job do I do? I work in a call center, and I haven't taken a single phone call off a customer in 2 years. So I'm a scheduler for the NBN, so that means I figure out what kind of route that each technician should take in a day, and in their installation of fibre to the node, fibre to the premise kind of work. Just recently I changed from fibre to the premise specifically, and to fibre to the node specifically. So as the old FTTP, the old style of better internet, winds down because of the government, the new style of fibre to the node kicks in, and instead of having technicians going to every single house and installing stuff, they now just go to a pillar outside the road and do some weird things with their little technology pull-throughs and electrical stuff, which I don't really understand what they do, but I just know how long it takes them and where they have to go.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Surprisingly, I work in a call center as well. It's been about a week since I've spoken to a customer, and I'm enjoying every second of it. I do similar stuff but different stuff. I'm not going to mention company names just because I don't directly work for the company that I answer telephones for. I work in outsourcing, so the company I work for runs call centers for everybody from a large supermarket chain to a lot of competing tech companies, which is quite funny sometimes, and stuff like that, which is pretty interesting to be in, and the sorts of calls I take are nice and varied, and it's fixing problems. So you do very similar jobs, yet so far apart.
Indeed. I actually used to work in a mixed call center like that, taking calls from electrical companies and some technical support thing for a telephone company and all kinds of funny random stuff.
Well, I take calls for one company specifically, but for argument's sake, say if that company decides actually we don't want your services anymore, I could end up dealing with calls for an energy provider. It's just such a variation in it, which is pretty cool. So yeah, it's fun times, but they just put me through a week of training and using new apps and stuff like that. So fun times, fun times.
Cool. And the other funny thing about where I work at the NBN, it's an internet company, which is upgrading the internet. And one of the places that they haven't got around to upgrading yet is my house.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, if I was doing scheduling for that sort of thing, my house would suddenly find its way quite close to the start of the queue. But,
the funny thing is that they have specifically made sure that the people that work in Victoria don't do Victoria.
Yeah, that's clever. Yeah, it's actually same for me. If I get anybody that I know or lives within sort of 20 miles of me, I have to transfer them to somebody else, which is quite funny. Because in my current role, I have to, what we call take ownership. So I have to say, I'm going to take over this case. I'm going to, and I'm your point of contact until this gets fixed. And I go, oh, right, you're from here. All right, bye. Sorry. But yeah, it's fun times, fun times.
Yeah, we have a Sydney office that handles Victoria, which is quite funny because we handle Sydney.
Yeah, if you were looking at it logically, but I guess this is a company we're talking about, so it can't be logical.
Yeah.
You'd put the person in Victoria in charge of Victoria because they know, like, they have a basic understanding of the layout of the area.
That's
but
true.
There we go.
That's why I used to love doing New South Wales, because I actually come from New South Wales. So I lived the first 25 years of my life in Sydney. And so I was the Sydney expert, but they've just changed the roles around a bit, and apparently I'm doing Queensland now, so whatever.
It's what our lords and masters ask us to do, not what we want to do, sadly.
Yeah, that's right.
So next, I'll segue along quite nicely. I'm sort of conscious we've got a few questions to ask here, so we'll keep on moving. What are your favourite routes to fly within Flight Simulator, or driving in Truck Simulator, or doing anything? Favourite routes for sort of gaming, I guess.
Favourite routes? Obviously, I do Milk Run Monday. There's Sydney to Melbourne. I used to live in Sydney. I currently live in Melbourne, so why not fly between the two of them? It's about an hour and 20 minutes. It's a wonderful flight. We have an event on VATSIM every single week between those. Well, not every single week now. We have Spilled Milk Run. But yeah, about 3 weeks in 4, we'll be hosting an event between Sydney and Melbourne. So that's kind of the bread and butter of what I do on VATSIM. I could fly that flight in my sleep these days, but which I often do. Lol. But apart from that, sometimes I like a bit of variety, and another one of the flights that I really enjoy is Santos Dumont, Rio de Janeiro, usually out of Sao Paulo. Not that I ever meet any ATC on that route, because they're all asleep when I get there.
No, I've got to say, it's actually one of my favourite routes as well, because you come out, I tend to come out of Guarulhos. Is it Guarulhos? No, it's Congonhas in Sao Paulo, which has got the nice short runway.
Yeah, that's right.
So you're blasting out of there at flaps 15 in the NG, and then you're getting on and flying up further up the country to Santos Dumont, which has got that really nice spiraling approach inbound and the really short runway to land on.
Yep.
So it's a pretty fun flight, that, actually. I've got to agree with you.
That runway is shorter than Bankstown's runway, which is used by Cessnas.
Well, with Santos Dumont, I know Gol fly the 800s in that, like the 737-800s.
Absolutely
I wouldn't dare. TAM, which is the kind of the other company that flies flights in that area, they've put a cap on it of largest jet that goes in there is a A319.
Yep.
So yeah.
Gotta love doing a takeoff in Santos Dumont with a 737-800, and you're looking at flaps at least 15, and even considering not only not derating, but you like starting to turn packs off and stuff.
Yeah, packs off, bump, flap 15, hold it on the brakes 30%, then floor it.
Yep.
Yeah, but my sort of, apart from obviously Brazil favourite route, probably Newcastle to Belfast, because it's a real world flight. 2 airlines do it from 2 different airports, and it's a nice short flight. You usually if you're doing it on VATSIM, you usually get Scottish Centre online, and you're sort of on the edge of his control zone. So he's talking to you, but you're not getting too much input there. And you got a lot of sort of you can manage yourself quite a bit. Actually, we did it in the Dash 8, didn't we, for the first dual crew Dash 8 hop.
Indeed.
But yeah, it's an interesting little flight to do. That's probably my favourite. The other one as well is I'm half Czech, as I kind of plug quite a bit. And I tend to quite like doing Prague to Ostrava, which is sort of, for those of you who can imagine the Czech Republic, Prague's in the middle, Ostrava's on the right-hand side, next to Poland and Slovakia. I used to live in Ostrava, and when my sister was little, and we were traveling to and fro because part of my family lives out there, part of them live here, we would actually do the flight with CSA at the time in an ATR. And it's sort of been something I do as well because it's a nice short flight, but they use it for crew training on the larger jets, so you can get pretty big jets going in, and it's a fun little flight to do. But yeah, that's my favorite routes. Right.
I think I'll add also that my favorite routes are when there's air traffic controllers on. If I didn't get ATC, it's not turning into a video.
Yeah, I'm sort of very different to you in that sense that I will literally, if there's ATC on, I'll squirm and go, actually, I don't want to speak to anybody. It's sort of one of those for me. But, sometimes I have a good time. Sometimes I enjoy having ATC, don't get me wrong. But other times, I would just rather not have them. But that's my personal preference, I guess.
Yeah, I've only ever had one. I've only ever had one time where I wished I didn't have ATC, and that was on a Friday night ops when they were going nuts, and one of the guys was possibly talking to me, but he kept on using the wrong call sign, so I didn't respond to him. Then I got lost out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean on a vector to nowhere.
Yeah, that's the thing for me with ATC. Is especially in the more congested bits of airspace in the UK, the controllers can get swamped. And I remember a few times coming out of the London airports, the controllers literally start shouting at people, and I'm going to do the bold thing of talking on behalf of more than just myself here. But if you're an air traffic controller and you're shouting at people, and you're not, and you're getting stressed out, just disconnect yourself, because you're not having a good time. And if you're going to end up shouting and you're getting really angry with people, then the only thing it's going to lead to is the new guys who have just sort of started on VATSIM going, I don't want to do this, get me out of here, basically.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I can sort of see that being a problem.
Yeah, I agree. If you're on VATSIM and you're not having a good time, then it's maybe time to start doing something else. Even just temporarily. Log off, go to bed.
Exactly. I get, and there's times when I'm on there and I get really angry at the controllers because I've asked for landing clearance 5 times. They haven't given me it. I've gone around. And then, it's just been silly things like that when I've been the only traffic within 40-mile radius. And, it's just little things like that that get me annoyed. And then go, right, disconnect. I can land myself. It was nice, but I don't need air traffic all the way.
Fair enough. Although, of course, if I haven't done a full ATC flight from destination to, origin to destination at least once a week, then that means I'm going to run out of videos.
Yeah, I mean, if you're being a content creator, then that's very different. And your style of content creation is very different to mine. You've got, 8,000 plus subscribers now?
Yeah, it's 8,000.
I've got 37. So, there's a bit of a difference there. And for me, I don't make any money out of YouTube. I make a phenomenal loss on it. I do it for a good time, and if I'm not having a good time, then I know the video's not going to be good, and I just go, you know what, stuff it, knock it on the head.
That's fair enough. Although I do like your train sim stuff, because I can hear often that you know where you are and you're enjoying your train sim. So If I could enjoy train sim half that much, I'd be interested.
And that's the thing for me with train sim, games like that. One of the runs that I do quite a lot is heading up from Newcastle up the East Coast, and that's right past my house. Like this morning, I actually saw like the train that I'm driving now, like heading like up the main line up towards Scotland, when I was on the bus on the way to work, and and I sort of know where I am and I know what I'm talking about. And it's the same for flying around the northeast. If I'm coming down the northeast coast, that's where I grew up. I know it like the back of my hand. My family are very outdoorsy. I used to, when I was 4, I would be walking 6 or 7 miles in the hills, and just really loved it. And that's how I sort of know the area a bit. But and I kind of get the feeling you enjoy, flight sim pretty much as I do train sim. But just sometimes for me, I love flying planes, but sometimes I just get a little bit frustrated and go, actually, you know what? I've had enough. Knock it on the head. Because I ended up with flight sim doing it so much and getting so annoyed with it that I thought I can't play this game anymore. It's getting on my nerves too much. I just wasn't enjoying it. So I stopped playing it for about 6 months, and I'm gradually getting back into it again now.
Yep.
But yeah.
Honestly, flight sim is like 2 separate games. There's airliners, which you do on VATSIM with the full IFR treatment from ATC, and then there's the small aeroplanes that you might fly around under ATC. And even if you're flying that aeroplane in that location in the real world, you wouldn't be talking to ATC. You'd be monitoring them, but never actually interacting with them directly. So,
absolutely. Absolutely. Right, so what is your top-rated aircraft? Or what are your kind of top 5, I will say,
good, top 5
jets for FSX/P3D?
I'd often say that I think of aircraft as mission points. So, for instance, if I said, I really love the, let's say, Piper Archer or Piper Cherokee from air to air, you can't really do a, cross the pond on that. It'll take you about 20 hours. But, so I think, the Boeing 777 from P&G is one of the top. It's very automated, flies itself almost, but it's a great technology demonstrator about what's possible in FSX, especially the 300 when you have the little, what they call the GMCS, or that the cameras on the tail. That probably works better in P3D actually, since it actually sits inside its proper, PFD.
Yeah, it is pretty cool.
So when I saw that for the first time, I was like, yep, that's pretty awesome. And so that aeroplane works well. I like its fly-by-wire as well. You can really tell it's working when you're on approach and you disconnect the autopilot and you're hand flying the thing down. And that's, really putting inputs into you that you're not really doing yourself. And you can almost take your hand off on some of those approaches and just flies itself down, which is kind of interesting to watch. A lot of people like the 737. I've gotten bored of it. I've been around 737 like full-size simulators since about 2008 when I was doing Royal Flight. Who am I kidding? The first Royal Flight I did was 2002, and I've kind of gotten around the 737 a bit since then. So that's more than 11, 12, 13 years of flying 737s in various guises. So when FSABs came out with their A320, which had a proper fly-by-wire and everything, I was quite impressed with that, so that'll be my number 2, A320. So I've got the first 2 that I've looked at, both have fly-by-wire. I think that might have a suggestion about what I'm interested in, which then leads off to the third aircraft, which almost has fly-by-wire, not quite. It would be the MD-11. Again, a PMDG product. For ages, that was the best long-haul airplane that we had in FSX. Unfortunately, it's still only FSX, technically. I've heard of some people using it in the other thing, but, you can't buy it for that. Heck, you can't buy it at all anymore. It's, I think the only option is on disc from Aerosoft. Not for those of us. Go ahead.
No, I've got to say, I agree with what you're saying with the sort of the airliner side. I've got to say, for me, the FS Labs bus, I'm still not sure how to feel about it. It's brilliantly modelled, but it always breaks for me.
Yeah, for me, it's definitely the hardest aeroplane on my system, performance-wise.
Yeah, I've spent far too much money on my PC, so it's not that much of an impact for me in performance. But just something breaks on it, the MCDU doesn't turn on, a screen goes black for no apparent reason, that kind of stuff. But apart from that, it's brilliant, and it's a bit expensive as well. That's my other complaint.
Yeah,
But there we go.
it's a bit expensive. My biggest complaint on it is the modelling of the rudder. But anyway, we'll all
Yeah.
we've all seen that on the first video that I made of it when I just like nearly ran off the edge of the runway.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I've got to say, I use auto rudder with it. That's the easiest way to steer it around for me because I don't have a separate like steering axis. I have rudder, like I have an X, Y, and Z and twist axis. I don't have like separate pedals for controls and stuff. I just do it that way.
Cool. Do you disconnect your rudder axis? For instance, it's got that funny thing where you can disconnect the rudder axis from the steering axis. Do you do that when you're landing?
I'm not that organized.
Fair enough. So, yeah, I'm guessing you're using the old, I think it's what, 30 knots or maybe 60 knots, where it just switches over from using the rudder to using the steering, no steering. Anyway, that's a bizarre one. So that was what, top 3 or top 4? Because I did mention the Airwear Cherokee, and that's definitely my favourite. I know it's not a lot of people's favourite. A lot of people really love their Cessna 172 because I guess they've all flown Cessna 172s, and technically I have 2 in the real world. I've got about 22 to 24 hours of Cessna 172 time, and I've got about 2 hours of Piper Archer time, and I like the Piper Archer better in the real world and in the sim as well. I think one of the main reasons is that when you're turning, like when you bank into a turn, you can actually see the direction that you're banking into, unlike in a Cessna where you've got a wing covering that window and you can't see out.
Yeah, I've got to say, I've got my real world flying experience is through the Air Cadets in the UK, and it is something I definitely recommend to young people because my background is my mum lives in a country where she's got a reasonably good job. She's a university lecturer, and she teaches at another school as well, and gets the equivalent of £3 an hour. Now, to compare that for you, I work in the UK. I have very basic qualifications. She has a doctorate, and I get about £7.50 an hour. So, it's quite a substantial difference. So, I was never in a position at a sort of a young age that I could go to my parents and say, "Oh, can I have some money to do a pilot's license?" That was never going to happen. So I did a lot of flying through the Air Cadets, and that is where I've probably learned the most about aeroplanes because I've done obviously stuff with the cadets in the real world, where I've done everything from looking for thermals in a motor glider to flying a Grob 115 around in the pattern at a base, and you're handling the jet down to about 40 feet, which we're not allowed to land the aircraft for insurance purposes, but it definitely boosts your confidence in terms of the fact that you know what you're talking about, that you go, actually, you know what, I've got an idea of what I'm doing, and the fact that actually I've done a lot of this stuff in the sim, it's exactly the same in the real world. And yeah, so I've got to say, for me, top 3 for FSX/P3D. Number 3 is sort of going to be a tie, PMDG 747, PMDG 777. Both in the same area because they're both good for different things. The triple's a brilliant tech demo, and it shows you what can be done. The 747, it's got this magic, that magic to it. I'm not sure what it is, but it's just got a magic. And it does something for me that no other aeroplanes do. I'm just not sure what that is. Then you've got number 2. Ooh, that's an interesting one. I'm probably going to go for the new Just Fly Arrow. I picked it up off their website, and I've got to say it's very, very good. You're definitely a competitor to the to the A2A sort of stuff that's out there. And number 1 for me is my least favorite airliner in the FSX world. The Majestic Q400.
I was about to get to that because you gave me 5, but yeah, it's a beautiful aeroplane that works exactly like a real one does, which is great, and it's also going to be frustrating for people.
If you're new to airliners, just don't go for it yet. Go for it, just not yet.
Yeah, it's a handful.
It's good, but yeah. I've got it. I got the Pro version. I enjoy flying it, but in small doses.
Yeah, I love how unstable it is in the like the roll axis. You're always moving that yoke around if you've got it off autopilot.
Yeah, and yeah, it's again, it teaches you a phenomenal amount about flying large aircraft. So it's very, very basic in terms of what it does for you. But can I just like have something smaller and easier, like maybe like an A315, I guess. But yeah, that's just me.
Yeah, the smaller airplanes, like even the other Dash 8s, of Q300 is probably a little bit easier to handle, given that it doesn't have as powerful engines. So as soon as you tuck in that torque, you've got rudder going all over the place. You'll be slipping that airplane all over the place until you've got your rudder sorted.
Yeah, the Dash 8's a brilliant aeroplane, and it does what it does brilliantly. It's just so hard to fly.
Yep. I'll have to ask my friend who just is about to get his type rating on the thing, so to see if he likes it or hates it, or think that there's anything that needs to be improved. I'm told that there's a couple of differences between the Dash 8 that we have in FS and the one that he flies, so particularly in the FMS. But I'd like to see another rundown of all the differences, and then maybe go for a fly with him, see how he works.
No, like there's always going to be, I guess, differences between how the sim works and how the real world works. Unless you're an X-plane, that is. Sorry, did I just say that? But it's, I guess, the limitations of the sim are there. I know the FS Labs bus is the first sort of major model that I've seen that brings about like things like getting the weather out of the FMS and stuff like that.
Yep.
But it's different, I guess, and it's different and fun. But yeah.
Yeah, that would have been one of my categories as well, because you've got the long haul airliner, you've got the short haul jet airliner, you've got the GA stuff, and then obviously the Dash 8 sits right in the middle of them. You've got kind of like regional airplane.
The Dash 8 is just a large Cessna, in my opinion.
Yeah,
it handles large just like a large Cessna. It's got no automation at all, well, or very little.
Yep.
So yeah. Right. So that was our top-rated aircraft. And one that we've got, which is sort of an interesting one, but it's one that we probably should answer, is how do you get your resources for flying an FSX? So things like charts, flight plans, all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, charts are easy. You just type in the name of the country that you're flying to, space, AIP in Google, and you'll find a whole bunch of charts.
Absolutely. In the UK, I know I just type in the airport code, so Newcastle's my home base, so I type EGNT, which is the ICAO code or ICAO code, depending which part of the world you're in. And charts.
Good thing with the UK is that they have their own published AIP. A lot of countries do. They keep them up to date. It's free. Some of them you need to register to get access to it, but it's just a password and an email address. And then you can get access to charts that the real dispatchers get.
Yeah, and as well, I guess it shows sort of a willingness in aviation for safety, in my opinion, with that.
Yeah,
because it's going, look, we could charge you for this, but we'd rather give you it for free, and you're using the latest information, and you're trying to tune an ILS frequency that's 10 years old in.
Yeah. And you guys have a really nice website. It's at nats-uk.ead.it.com. And quite easy to figure out what charts are there, all listed by IK code and the name of the airport. We have much the same in Australia.
I don't do much flying around Australia. I think I've done about 2 flights, one of which was with you. Because with that time I did the amazing landing in Sydney.
Yeah.
But I can't talk for Australia, but that's how we get. I get charts anyway, and obviously you do too.
Yeah, that's Australia.com.
Mm.
I know a lot of people use like the Navigraph charts, but they charge for them, and I don't really see the point.
Yeah, I'm a bit tight like that as well. If I don't have to pay the money, I won't.
Yeah, well, you can get charts for free for the UK. You can get charts for free in the US, everywhere. You can get charts for free in Australia and New Zealand as well. And I don't really fly many other places. Hong Kong obviously has charts available. The only place I've really consistently run into that I have problems finding charts is India.
I've done India once, and I did it without chart. Actually, I did it with charts. Sorry.
Yeah, there's some old charts. So the weirdest thing is that their own AIP, they're like their own government publishing chart agency, have outdated charts on their website.
Well, safety first, I guess. Safety first. Yeah. But no, I've done one trip into India on VATSIM, which was Dubai to Mumbai. And I think I just went onto like the Indian VATSIM website, and they had the charts on there. That's another good place to get your charts from, actually.
Yeah, if you can't find them in the real world ones, then just go on the VATSIM page, and they've probably got something there.
Yeah, precisely. Like Prague, I know, has all of the actual charts there, and then the SID style ones are up to date, and the ground ones are as per the freeway scenery.
Yeah.
So you're not going to be sort of told to go down taxiway, 15 purple. Oh, sorry, your Bravo purple, something like that, which does happen, but you don't have it in the scenery, so they won't tell you to do it, which is quite good. And it obviously isn't on the charts there either. As for flight plans, 2 ways you can do it. Well, 2 sort of main ways you can do it is 3 ways you can do it really. 2 ways that are legal. One is PFPX, a flight sim soft tool. Really, really good. It's, how much is it? It's like £30, whatever that is in your currency.
Yes.
It's really good. I would say it's worth every penny. Do you use PFPX, or How do you do yours, friend?
Pretty much PFPX on every flight that isn't a VFR flight.
Yeah, and then also the sim brief as well, which you get for free. But if you want the more up-to-date nav data, you have to, you get a code with your Navigraph subscription that you copy pasta into the website, and it'll give you access to the more up-to-date nav data on there. That's another way of doing it. And the third way of doing it is if you have a contact with the airline that does the flight in the real world, you can sometimes, ask that contact to see if they can find you a flight plan.
And I'll also mention for people that aren't in Europe, and unfortunately for those that are, there's this thing called FlightAware, and it shows what was usually filed or possibly modified by TC for aircraft flying in anywhere in America, Canada as well, Japan, Australia, and New Zealand. You can get full flight plans out of all of those countries. Yeah,
FlightAware actually is a really good place as well. I forgot about that one. Thanks for bringing that up for me.
Unfortunately, it doesn't work so well in Europe, where I think most of that data is, for some reason, censored to FlightAware. They're not allowed to catch it.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that whole thing works, if I'm totally honest.
Well, often, even just to see if, like a flight number, you just type in your origin and your destination in the flight live tracking drop-down, which is a flight finder, chuck in your ICAO codes at both origin and destination, and then it'll show you every flight that's flying between those 2 locations, if there are any, the flight number that they're using. It's usually the actual flight number, not the one that they say to ATC if it's in Europe. For instance, you get in our Qantas link, all their Dash 8 Q400 flights have a D at the end of it, and when they add the D at the end of it, they take away the first digit. So instead of Qantas Link flight number 2417, it's flight 417 Delta. And unfortunately, FlightAware doesn't catch that.
Yeah. Right, so yeah, that's obviously getting your resources together for your flight. But obviously, before we can go flying, we also need to learn the aeroplane as well.
Yeah, well.
So
or you can just go flying.
Yeah, just YOLO. That is a genuine tactic. But how do you learn like complex aeroplanes, and sort of what pointers would you give for it?
I think at some point in the maybe 10, 20 years ago, I started reading large manuals for the 737, 737-800 and the 400, and I learned how to do that because of WorldFlight. Then I flew what would have been the old PMDG for Flight Sim 2002. Ages, lots and lots of studying on that. But as soon as I figured out how to fly the 737, I find that most aeroplanes kind of work the same way.
No, I've got to agree with you actually. For me, my first peerware plane I learned was the Wilco 737. That was the first time I it was actually a Newcastle Belfast as well, believe it or not. The first time I actually plugged a flight like an FMS in and did the full flight. The first plane I operated normally, I would say would be the Aerosoft Airbus. And after a while, after you've learned like an Airbus and a Boeing jet, everything else follows a similar logic.
Yep. And even if it doesn't, you can always look up the differences in the manual. And it's just usually like everything works the same, except I can't do this one thing that I want to do. And then you just look up how to do that, and it's like, oh, that took about 5 or 10 minutes.
Precisely. And YouTube is your friend as well, in my opinion. If that's how I learned the dash. I YouTubed it, and then I did the Align to Sim training pack, which was really handy. But I went through YouTube as well. It's a good way to learn.
Yep.
Because it depends, what your method of learning is. If you want to, watch somebody do it and just keep pausing as you do it yourself. If you want to listen to them, that kind of stuff. It's a good way to do it in my eyes.
I agree.
Right. Yeah. So now we have some questions for you.
Yeah.
One of your very faithful viewers wants to know, will you try X-Plane? Are you hipster enough?
I think if there's a very good add-on that comes out that gets all the mad reviews, that so far I don't think anything's quite piqued my interest, but maybe at some point there will be. And when my PC upgrades are done, which will be at the end of this year, I will probably do that.
Sounds good. I've got to say, I agree with you. There's a few jets out there now that are about, I'm going to say Aerosoft standard, that they look really good, they fly really good, but there's some of the behind-the-scenes stuff isn't in there. But it's, I guess, each to their own, And, as we discussed earlier, the cross-platform jump is not cheap.
Yeah, that's a problem. Maybe I should start a Patreon. Yeah.
Yep. Donate to Silverbird Actual now. But no, so your next question from another one of your viewers, I should have got names here, I do apologise, is how long have you been simming for?
Well, there we are. Philip Roberts. There we are. I've got my actual page up. So, yeah, how long have I been simming? My God, that's a long time ago. I started simming in Flight Sim 98 in 1998, but I had actually been flying some random combat sims for silly platforms like, my Commodore 64 and stuff before that. So I do remember once I was about 8 years old, so that's way, way, way in the back. One of my friend's dads had Flight Sim really early version. One of those ones where you pop out a meat on what looks like a wireframe mesh of a sim. Might have been Flight Sim 5 or earlier. And yeah, I got into that. But I think seriously, 98.
Yeah, for me, I'm sure to like quick little disclaimer. I was born in '97, so I can't really go as far back as you on that. But my first memory is flying a Cessna 172 in FS 95 around Megasfield in Chicago.
Yep.
That is my actual first memory. My other one is that there was a simulator out for MS-DOS, I believe, which was F-117. Like, I forget the exact name of it, but you had to fly a Nighthawk about.
Yep, I think I've seen
And
that one as well.
it was actually a really, really good flight sim. Totally basic. Literally like yellow ground when you flew over the desert. If somebody was chasing you, you turned around hard, and that was all you could do. But really, really good. That's my sort of level with that. That's when I sort of first started. First serious flight and flight sim. Like, you know, with you define serious, I guess. Because you know, I'm committed to your flight simming and I enjoy it, and I've been enjoying it. Well, I got my I've sort of played it on and off my whole life. But I really got into it when I was about 12, so about 6 years ago. And sort of never stopped since, really.
I'll give you a little funny anecdote here. In the year 1999, I got my first SATCO account and participated in my first big event, which is the Sydney 2000 Olympics flying in Sydney, between Sydney and Brisbane, and we had a real-world RWF controller from Newcastle Williamtown, who was a girl, female, actual controller, controlling the Sydney approach.
Wow.
So that's the first big event that I ever flew. It was Sydney to Brisbane, flight sim 98. I think I was using one of the A320, like a freeware A320, with a navigation software called Navdash, which was basically an FMS. It was a 767 style FMS that you could insert into your flight sim. So I was flying a 767 FMS with a A320 model between Sydney and Brisbane.
My first major event would have been, let me think. It probably would have been Runway to Hell in the Czech Republic. And I did 2 flights that night. First flight was Chennx 3 Papa Yankee, which is Prague Newcastle, which is the flight I usually get on when I'm coming home from the Czech Republic. And the other was pretending to be an ATR flying as a Dash 8 in like internal checks, so doing my second most favorite route, which is Ostrava to Prague. And it was, in hindsight, a totally stupid idea, and I shouldn't have done it, because I was in well over my head on that one. It was, you know, I remember being shouted at by an air traffic controller who said, I said turn left heading 320, not turn right. And I'm like, okay. But yeah.
At least that was only on VATSIM. Because I've heard that phrase, you should have turned left, not right, in the real world. Fortunately, not me.
In fairness, for me, this flight, I was heading, like, I was coming in for the easterly approach. So the ILS course would have been 069. And I was flying, basically it would have been quicker for me to turn right than turn left. And I turned right because the guy was incredibly busy. And I thought, actually, you know what? He's really busy. I'm just not going to question what he said there, and just do what I assume. And that was sort of a bit of a mistake, I guess, in hindsight.
Yeah. A lot of the ATC guys with good radio technicals, if they're doing something weird like turning a long way around, they'll say turn right. I say again, turn right, heading, blah, blah, blah.
I think at that point I was about one of 20 aircraft on that frequency, all being radar vectored for an ILS. So, you know, it was one of those ones.
Fun. What year was that?
2 years ago. I got into VATSIM quite recently.
Okay.
I did a lot of offline flying, and I still do. I'm not as big into my VATSIM as you are. I
Yep.
just sort of prefer my own sort of slow pace, I guess.
Cool. My
With
first
this
flight
one,
on VATSIM Satco was the year I think it was Christmas Eve, 1998. Or was it 99? One of them.
I don't think I knew how to talk at that point, so that's probably why I wasn't doing a flight sim flight then.
Yeah. A lot of my guys are like, "How do I get started in VATSIM? When did you start?" And it's like, probably before you were born.
Yeah. um, yeah. Right. So, that's how long we've been collectively simming. What is your favorite airline?
Oh, that's going to be an interesting one. Favorite airline to fly in, or the one that I fly in most. I like my low cost because it doesn't cost me much to go back to Sydney or over to New Zealand. So at the moment, it's usually it's a three-way fight between Virgin Australia, Jetstar, and Tiger Airways. And at the moment, Tiger Airways is beating out Jetstar because their A320s are actually more comfortable than the Jetstar A320s. They just got better seats. Um, they both treat you mostly the same, except I find the guys on Tiger a little more easygoing. So I go with Tiger over Jetstar. I do like Virgin Australia, although these days they're a lot more expensive. So I'm not actually flying on them very much unless I'm going overseas. I flew over to New Zealand in February, so just a couple of months ago. And on the way there, I flew on Virgin Australia, and on the way back, I flew on Air New Zealand. Now, the Virgin Australia flight was really cheap. I think it cost less than $150 all the way over to New Zealand, which is about a 4-hour flight. The only downside is a 737 on a 4-hour flight, so, not that great. And on the way back, I was a 787. And you'd think that the 787 flight would be amazing because it's, a full class carrier on a 787. And I actually liked Virgin better because they treated me better. As in, their flight crew were nicer.
No, I've got to say, for me, I am a massive, massive promoter of BA. British Airways, favourite airline. For me, full stop. However, if price is an object, which in Europe at the minute, price is a bit of a weird one, because no airline, for some reason, I was looking at flights back from the Czech Republic because I tend to go over there for the summer and then obviously come back for school and work and fun stuff. Jet2, which is a low-cost airline, all of their aircraft are at least twice my age. Well, not quite that, but they are significantly older than me. They've got the really old 737-300s. When they get rid of aircraft, they go into the scrap heap. That's sort of how old they are. And, they were going to charge me the equivalent of £200 for a 2-hour flight, and I'd have to pay extra for a check bag. I then dug around a bit, and I found that British Airways, which is obviously a full-cost carrier, you get free food, free bag, free fun stuff. They were going to charge me $160, and Scandi, SAS, were going to charge me $150. So I'm sort of a big promoter, and my two favourite airlines at the minute are Scandinavian and British Airways. Just because, I'm English and all that kind of good stuff.
Yep. I'm funny like that. I'm Australian, but I don't really like Qantas. In fact, the last time I purchased a Qantas Airlines ticket was in 2003, and it was way overpriced.
I've got to say, I've got absolutely zero experience with Qantas, except for the fact that one of their A380s had an engine blow up. That was about all I know about it. That's about all I know about it. So, yeah, each by their own, really.
Indeed. And a little bit overpriced, and the last time I flew on them in 2003, they hurt my back by landing badly in Melbourne. It was sore
Yeah.
for a week.
Ooh, that's Ryanair in Europe. Like as I say, my sort of family lives over in the east of the Czech Republic, which is a 3-hour train journey if you fly into Prague. So Ryanair started doing flights direct to Ostrava. So I thought, yes, I'll get a cheap Flybe down to Stansted, and I've completely misjudged this stop. And then, obviously Ryanair across to Ostrava. Now, Ostrava it's like a concrete tile runway, but it's about 10,000 foot long. It's ridiculously long. I have floated 737 landings. This wasn't a float. I genuinely think the pilot just didn't want to land or something, or the airplane didn't want to land, because we were a good 2/3 of the way down the runway before we touched down. So it's Ryanair don't know how to land planes, but that's just my opinion on it.
Indeed. I would blame my bad landing on a 767 having backwards landing gear.
Yeah. Again, I think from memory, I've only ever been in a 7.5, not a 7.6. And that was back in the days of Britannia Airlines, which is pretty vintage if you're British, because they've been turned into Thomson now. Now, your next question, Trent, is about your moustache. The amazing facial hair. Tell us about it.
I agree that, like, in high school, we weren't allowed to have facial hair, so, I didn't have facial hair throughout high school. I started shaving at about, I can't remember what age I was. But, come year 12 graduation, off went the moustache, and it just stayed with me. I think the very first time I took it out in public, as it were, was to a fancy dress party where I dressed up as a Jedi. And Mum liked my moustache, so she didn't want it gone after I was like, yeah, I'm done with moustache. So I just kept it, and you know what? Not shaving is pretty fun.
I try to grow a moustache. It usually lasts about 3 weeks with me, and being 19 and being unable to grow facial hair sort of makes my life a bit harder for that. I've sort of adopted the stance now of, I occasionally present as a female, so, and females don't have facial hair, so I just shave regularly and keep a nice clean cut. But, to say the Trent-based moustache is quite legendary, apparently.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of piloty types that have a moustache. Captain Jeff from Airline Pilot Guy, and he's probably your most famous one. So yeah.
No, I've got to say there's certain types of moustache. Actually, anecdote time. Back in my time in the Cadets, I went on a camp to an RAF base called Henlow, which is down in Bedfordshire, which is the home of the Sprout, basically. There's not much else there except Brussels sprouts. They're not going to be allowed to be there anymore after this week. Kappa. I was in, Henlow, and the station commander was a wing commander, ex-air traffic controller, really top-class guy. I've got to say, really, to this day, think highly of him. And he, was basically, he had the greatest mustache I've seen ever. Now, I'm sorry, he actually rivals yours for this one. And I'm useless for faces. I can't remember what people look like, but what was the name of that TV program? It was kind of big in my childhood. Not sure about yours. I'm genuinely not sure what year it was that it came out. But this family that went around the world in a camper van, and like the dad had a crazy handlebar mustache. That's literally what I remember him as. And I'm just like, yeah, mustaches for days. But it's sort of my, mustaches. I can't grow one, but I'm jealous of people who have one. I'll leave it at that.
Fair enough. Whenever I try to grow a beard, I get to about 4 weeks in, and it's like itchy as hell, and I just take it off. So I've managed to keep my goatee, but anything out on my cheek is just no.
Yeah, as I say, I usually last a little while because yeah, I work in a call center. I don't have to face customers. I just sit there and talk to them and sound convincing about things I've got no idea about. But yeah, it's I
I'm
tend to
even
keep it
better off.
clean cut.
I'm in the call center. I just sit there making schedules and not talking to anyone. A lot of our guys
Yeah,
have beards, full beards, and it's like, yep, that's a beard because you couldn't be bothered shaving. But anyway.
no, there's yeah, I said due to the nature of the job I have, I said did like training to sort of progress to the next department within the company, if you like. And in a training class of 16 people, 2 girls, so and most of the guys either know far too much about tech or haven't shaved for a very, very long time. But yeah, I love them nevertheless.
Indeed.
But yeah, that's facial hair talk over. Next question I've got for you. Actually, next question we've got generally, sorry, is recording setups. How do you record? What's the process you go through? What software? Those kinds of shenanigans.
Cool. I'm running OBS Studio, and I'm a few versions behind now, so I should update it really. It's coming through that NTSC straight from the video card, so I'm not using processing power, which is really quite useful since I don't get stutters if I use it that way, whereas doing the other way. Basically what I do is I open up the sim, let it actually be running because it takes me about 3 minutes because I don't have an SSD, and set it up at the airport, and often I just start recording straight then. So I've opened up all my programs, and you've seen the beginning of my videos lately have just been, here's BFPX, I'm going to land a flight from here to here, and then off you go.
I'm a little bit different to that. I have obviously quite heavily upgraded my PC. I've got a 1080 graphics card at the minute, and I use NVIDIA Shadowplay to record. Because I have quite a fast internet speed. I've got about 30 megs upload speed, which is really, really good for streaming and uploading. So, this video is going to be about 20, 30 gigabytes because it's recorded 1080p 60 FPS, but using NVIDIA Shadowplay means there's literally no frame drop, no stutters, no nothing. It's really good. After that, if I need to edit a video for whatever reason, let's say it goes horrendously wrong, I show my bank details on screen, that kind of stuff, then I use Sony Vegas. It's nice and simple. Hit render and then bang it up to YouTube from there. That's how I do it.
Cool. And I was looking at the person who asked that question is Tom Slot, and he's obviously trying to take a jab at Tom Scott because he's wearing the same red shirt. Ever watched Tom Scott?
I'm going to pretend I understand that. No, I've got absolutely no idea what you're talking about.
In YouTube, type in Tom, T-O-M, Scott, S-C-O-T-T, and have an enjoyable watching time for about an hour. He does short videos, about 3 minutes, 5 minutes, and they're usually quite interesting.
Well, I'll have a look at it. Genuinely, I say, I follow us. I don't have much time out of my day to watch YouTube.
That's really. As you can imagine, because my job involves not basically avoiding talking to people, because the more people that talk to me, the longer my workday will be. So if I avoid talking to people, I chuck in headphones and listen to the longest videos that I can find on YouTube. It's pretty much what I do.
Yeah, why not allow YouTube for security reasons?
We're not allowed YouTube, but I download YouTube onto, we're not allowed to use YouTube on our own computers. They're actually locked out. So type in www.youtube.com and you'll find yourself staring at a page that says, this web page is blocked. Go away. But yeah, on my own.
We have exactly the same.
On my own phone, I'll use a downloader. I should be using YouTube Red, but there's freer ways of doing that. And I download them as MP3 files so that they're not huge.
No, it's a sensible way to do it. For me, I'm not allowed my phone on me. So I tend to play chess with a computer at work. And I'm now beating the computer, so I've played a lot of chess because we handle sensitive computer data, sorry, customer data even.
Oh, yeah.
So theoretically, we could afford you your email address. But yeah, so but yeah, I'll have a look. I commute 1.5 hours each way every day, so it'll be an interesting thing to have a peek at.
Yeah, it's quite cool. That's usually where I get into all of my podcasts. So I'm listening to podcasts or downloading YouTubes as a podcast that I listen to and not look at.
Nice. Yeah, pretty cool.
Which, unfortunately, I have to admit is often the way that I watch your videos. So I listen to your videos.
Mate, at least you watch my videos.
Some of them.
You know, like I've got 2 people who watch my videos and I know both of them. So
yeah, I'm worried
YouTube is great success.
I'm worried that sometimes some of the ways that I download it don't count towards your views. But anyway, we'll see.
To be honest, it's you know, with the amount of money that I make out of YouTube, thanks to ad block and the way YouTube works, I've got about 3,000 total views on my channel. I've not ever, I can't tell you how much money I do or do not make from YouTube. However, I can tell you that I haven't been paid by YouTube yet. To be paid by YouTube, you need to make at least $100 US.
Yep.
To give you an idea, the FS Labs bus cost more than $100 US.
Yep. I'm quite happy that I often get paid once every 2 to 3 months, so that'll give you an idea of how much money's coming through.
But it's you know, it's kind of, you know, for you, I guess the hobby starts paying for itself at this point.
Yeah, at some point, almost. Although every time that you look at how much it'll cost to repurchase PNVG 737 again for P3D.
Yeah, don't start me on that one. Don't start me on that one. Mind you, you should have a chat with Robert Rendatz and be like, I'll plug it for you if you give me like a discount.
Yeah. The other question on that one was, what setup do I use for P3D? And I'll have to be honest here, I don't like reinventing the wheel, so I just go to good old Matt Davies' channel and look at how he did it and do that.
Yeah, I went for the really rocket science approach of max. All right, that doesn't run. Right, let's start turning things down until it runs, basically. That's been my approach to it recently. So
yeah, cool.
Yeah. Right. Final question.
I always have a bit of a laugh when people ask me like, "How do you make this work?" And I'm like, "I've got no idea. The only thing that I'll be doing is looking at how other people do it and do that."
Insert like, you know, the magic meme or the aliens meme here. Yeah. I know it's like half the time I don't know how my sim works. Like I don't know how Trend Sim works. I've well overloaded the engine at this point in terms of what it can and can't do. Yep. So
I've recently broken City Skyline, so I have to undo all of my add-ons with that. Start from scratch.
Don't start me on cities.
Yeah.
What I like, one thing I would recommend if you're going for mods for your games is find a YouTuber that has a mod spreadsheet or has a mod list. I do it with GTA for LSPDFR, which is like a police mod for GTA. And I go to Jeff Fabiano's channel and get just the list of mods that he's currently using, because I know it's going to work. Half the time, if you just go, that mod looks cool, you're gonna and import 100 mods, you're gonna find something breaks.
Yep. Cool.
Insta speed, but yeah.
Next question.
So the last question, which we kind of covered a bit of earlier, but I thought we can, you may as well go back through it again, is what are real world flying experiences, or what your real world flying experiences, and I'm going to sort of tag myself into it.
Cool, real world flying experience. I did a what we call in Australia GFPT in 2003. Yeah, that's right, 2003. So flying in Cessna 172. It was an old model M. That one didn't even have a GPS on it in that time. So yeah, flying around, no GPS at all. Bankstown, GPT. That's about 20 hours of flying in that. Then I did an extra 3.5 towards a PPL, but then I failed a medical. I got a provincial medical, but it was only medical 3, so it means that I'm never going to be a, commercial pilot. Well, at least a ATPL pilot. So I decided, that's not going to be a job. So I did 3 hours of floating around, wasting some money, and then I stopped for about 10 years. And then all the videos of me flying in the Piper Archer Hotel Tango Mike and the Cessna Kilo November happened in about 2013, 14, 15.
Yeah, so so I say that you have obviously, as I mentioned earlier, I can't afford a pilot's license. In the UK, I actually went to my local flight school and sort of got the price list. The bulk of what you're paying for is actually the air traffic controller to talk to you. Not like the instructor's time or anything like that. More just getting an ATC to talk to you and landing fees. I have 3.5 hours. Grob 115, which is the tutor and RAF service. White, low wing, nice little, bit like a Cessna 172, flies really nicely, and I actually really love flying that thing. One of my top GA aircraft, even in the sim, the Iris version. And I have a further 5 hours on the Grob 109, which is known as the Vigilant and RAF service, which is just a motor glider, which is just it's basically a Grob tutor with a really big wing on it, strapped to it. But yeah, I got that flying experience for free through the Air Cadets. Air Cadets, really great. I strongly recommend it to anybody who, is thinking about it. Give it a go. If you don't like it, no one's going to force you to stay there.
Cool. The Grob's the one with the bubble canopy, isn't it?
Yeah, correct. Low wing, bubble canopy, 2 seats, that kind of fun stuff.
Cool. Never flown a bubble canopy.
Yeah, they've got a few of them hanging around Australia, actually. They're quite popular down under.
Yeah, I've seen a few in the round. What's it like flying with bubble?
The one thing I find is, being a 12-year-old, when you do flying, you want to do loops and rolls and that kind of stuff. It's a lot easier for vertical visibility. So when you come into the loop, you go through the vertical and you throw your head straight back, and you're immediately looking for the horizon. And that's, I would say, a lot easier. I've never actually flown a non-bubble canopied aircraft. But that's, for aeros, I guess. Also for, visibility as well. Because where we used to do our flying was RAF Leeming in North Yorkshire, which houses 100 Squadron of the Royal Air Force, which is a bit like the F5 Tigers from Miramar at Top Gun. And they are absolutely pro pilots, but they are suicidal. It's really good to keep your eye out for those guys as well. But apart from that, it's not that much of a difference in my eyes, but it's still just a pretty cool airplane to fly. Nevertheless, it's the 109, which is the glider, is obviously slower and more sensitive, and the tutor, which is the 115, is a bit more of a sports car. Of an aircraft. So, yeah, that's my 10 pence of an opinion.
Cool. I've met a pilot that flies the DA40, and the funny thing that I found about them was when they wear a hat inside the aeroplane.
Yeah, I guess that's for us. Obviously, doing it through the Air Force, you get a cool Maverick style pilot helmet. Normally, because what they've done recently with like the Cadets, well, not recently, in the last 10 years, is if you're like an instructor pilot, you get a green helmet, which includes a smoked visor.
Oh, yeah, cool.
If you're a cadet, you only get sunglasses because it's cheaper.
Yep.
And I'm really big-headed. I've got a really long head for some reason. So the standard cadet size helmets don't fit me. So I get the one with the cool smoked visor, and I sort of walk out to the aircraft humming the Top Gun theme tune.
Cool. Yeah, I was all GA and mostly, within 60 degrees angle of bank kind of stuff. So flying with Cessna 172 for the first 23 and a half hours of my flying time, and the low wing Piper Archer after that.
Actually, the first, sorry, no, it was actually the first ever flight I did with the cadets was an ex-Tornado pilot who did a load of time down under with you guys, flying the F-18.
Cool.
So that kind of gives you an idea of what sort of flying he was into.
Yep. Good old stuff. Yeah, most of my stuff's been civilian. I've not flown with a ex-military guy yet. Maybe one day. Probably not.
They're actually, I've never actually flown with a civil. Actually, I have flown with a civilian guy, because the gliders are run through volunteer gliding schools, and the grubs are obviously Air Force. But it's fun times indeed.
Good. Yeah. The other thing is, I guess I paid for most of my own flying, so straight out of pocket. Back in 2003, when I did the bulk of it, I was forking out about 300 now. That's dual.
So rough. That's not that bad if thinking about it, though. Really, how much do you get paid an hour? Just so I can sort of summarize it, because I'm not actually sure what the conversion rate is.
Oh yeah, that's all right. So I'm getting 22, 23 now, somewhere in the middle. Dollars.
That's significantly cheaper for you than it is for me.
Yep.
Because I'm about $2.20 an hour from my local flight school, and I'm on about £7.50 an hour, which isn't minimum wage. It's a few tiers up, but it's still not. Obviously, make a big bucks.
I just realised that a lot of people are hearing me saying that I haven't flown with any Air Force guys, and they're wondering, well, you're flying out of Richmond Air Force Base. What the heck? Yep, yeah. There's a Richmond Air Force Flying Club that isn't actually part of the RAAF. So it's just a flying club that exists at Richmond. Most of the guys that go there are obviously RAAF guys, but he's not. He's a civilian guy.
Yeah, obviously I know you mentioned he's changed his job a bit recently. Lucky him. Lucky him. Also, Samuel Isles, you sir can have a shout out. And why do we like flying planes so much, Trent?
Because planes are awesome. Also, from a psychological perspective, I think an interest in technological things. So I like technology in the general sense as well, even though I don't own much of it because I'm poor. Well, not that poor. And yeah, I've got 2 PCs sitting next to me that I move around and stuff. All the peripheries, mobile phones, cars. Although, to be honest, I find cars boring because they just sit on the ground all day.
Yeah, exactly. Like I was actually had this debate with my dad, because he back in the day used to work for a company that had like sites all over Europe, and would get a flight with went for a flight once with his manager, like going from one plant to another with the company. I think it was a Robin DR400 looking at the pictures. But anyway, and he was like, but it's so boring. You only go in 3 axes. Yeah, you drive a car. You go in like left and right and forwards and backwards.
Yep.
But Zaba HD, we'll exhaust most of the questions. I think I'll add a few more to the list.
That's fine. We can come back next month.
Which aircraft are you looking forward to the most? The Aerosoft A330 or the Quality Wings 787?
God, both of them. But I think the A330 will be out first, and it's going to be one of these multi-crew aircraft, and it'll be the first multi-crew aircraft that is for a long-haul aircraft. So why we didn't start with long-haul aircraft, we'll never know. But I'm sure that across the pond, when you have a whole bunch of multi-crews going over the pond, will be quite interesting.
Yeah, it'll be a challenge finding someone who can spend more than 2 hours with me and sort of reason. But,
that's right. You can be the relief crew and sit there making position reports all day.
Nah, I'll be all right.
Exactly. Someone's going to go, oh, you're in command of the multi-crew now, so I'm off to bed. I'll see you for landing.
Well, no, I made it across the pond without talking to any ATC. Nobody noticed.
You can actually get away with that over the NAT. It's pretty bad.
Let's see. Owen Mitchell, can I borrow $20? I don't have $20. What about you, Trent?
I'm about to set up a Patreon, so maybe he can give me $20.
Let's see. Reply to a few of them. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all of the questions that we can really answer.
Oh, there is the night dark and full of terrors.
Yeah, I didn't understand that one, so I decided not to touch it just to be on the safe side.
So you're not a Game of Thrones person.
All I know about the Game of Thrones is the Northrend members and winter is coming. That's literally all I know.
So there's a religion in the Essos region. Also, the Red Priestess is one of them, called, I think they worship a god called R'hllor, who is the fire god, and their chant is the night is dark and full of terrors, and then the fires will wash them away.
All right.
So,
cool.
Weird, very, I think it's because that particular guy, his wife's into Game of Thrones, and the books that they're based on, more so than the actual show. Which I agree,
Cool.
books are better.
Yeah, I've got to say, I went to Comic-Con locally, and there was a guy went as Jon Snow. That's all I know, is that he was Jon Snow, because I recognise the outfit. And like me and two friends followed him around just saying, winter is coming, and that kind of stuff. But,
So why aren't you into it? Why are you not a Game of Thronesy?
I wasn't into it from the start, and I watched one of those basic 2-minute Game of Thrones. The guy who gets turned into a meme a lot is a bit of a dick. That's about it.
Joffrey.
Yeah. It's just one of those, like, I watched a YouTuber do like the story mode playthrough, and I was going to do it, and then I sort of changed up how I made content. But yeah.
Fair enough. It's one of the very few TV shows that I ever watch. And how do I watch it? Well, let's just say that one of the most pirated TV shows in Australia.
Yeah, everyone's got a Netflix and chill, even the YouTubers.
Yep. Let's just say that I pay the iron price.
Yeah, it's like, for me at the moment, I just don't have the time to watch YouTube. I have Amazon Prime for the Grand Tour. I watch the odd YouTube video. I very rarely watch the entirety of one of your videos. That's sort of the amount of time I have.
That's right.
Yeah.
I love when people ask me to do tutorials on stuff, and it's like, well, I don't do tutorials, but have a look at what I'm doing, because if you do that...
To be honest, I agree exactly with what you're saying there. I've done the odd how-to video, but I've given up, because if you do a how-to video, you're kind of saying I know what I'm doing, and I just really don't.
Yeah. I kind of know what I'm doing, but sometimes I'm not sure exactly what I'm doing until I've done it.
I just don't have a clue. I just go, yeah, we'll press some buttons, it'll work. Let's get out of here. That kind of thing.
Cool. And why don't I fly private jets on VATSIM? Because there's no good private jets.
But the Phenom by Coronado and the Hawker and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm kind of off Coronado. I hate them now.
I would say it is sort of a, I guess it's sort of aimed at the people who want to pick a plane up and fly it.
Yep.
But a lot of them, quite recently, you've got to learn the GPS, and that annoys me.
Yeah, well, I should give them another try, but last time I tried was with their Meridian, Piper Meridian, and their GPS on that thing was not only complicated, but also wrong.
Nah, I've got to say, it's, I just tend to stick to VOR now, if I'm kind of doing that sort of flying. I'm I'm more likely to mount a something like a pipe, sorry, not piper, a de Havilland chipmunk, and that kind of thing, and just do VO like your actual VFR or do radio nav, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, my favourite thing is with the GPS, you've got those Rally XP things, and you've got the Flight 1 GTN 650s. And since I've flown real aeroplanes with those two units in them, and those particular add-ons work the same as the real one, I'm going to use that.
Yeah, I've got to say, like, again, I don't have that experience. For what the sort of stuff I did with the cadets was, VFRing around and knowing, right, that train line there's the East Coast main line. If you turn left, you're going to head up towards York. If you get to York, you've gone too far. Turn back around and go the other way.
Yep.
That was sort of our navigation.
I did a bit of VFR navigation with, plotting charts and that kind of thing. But beyond that, most of it was VFR, but we simply had those units in there, and it's like, cool, I've got a flight sim that is that unit, so I might as well learn how to use it.
No, because I agree with that, but we didn't have them. The Grobs have a very, very basic GPS system. What they actually tend to do is, if you do get lost, you take a bearing off a VOR and figure out which direction you got to head in.
Yep.
To get back to base. So yeah.
And well, the other good thing with Australia is you just point east until you hit the water.
And then turn left or right depending where you want to go.
Yep.
Yeah, the UK is not that big. Turn left for men wearing skirts. Turn right for women wearing skirts, I guess.
Yeah, it's a funny thing when I was flying into New Zealand, and you see them flight sim if you do it as well, is that if you're up at even 10,000 feet, you can see both coasts.
Yeah, there's my favourite flight being Belfast, Newcastle. In that flight, it's one of the few locations you can see, like every country in the United Kingdom. You can see Scotland, Wales, England, Northern Ireland, and Ireland, which obviously it's its own independent country now, but you can see that as well.
That's pretty cool.
And of course the Isle of Man.
The other funny thing is that, like, in my brain, when I think I need to go east, that means the coast, or I want to go to the coast, that means east, and then you try to do some, as we're doing next month on VATSIM, flights in Western Australia. That'll be a confusing one.
Yeah. It's in the UK. It's so small. Like, I did the Piper Arrow on Newcastle to Manchester. I oomed before I got to Manchester because Aerosoft Manchester scenery, but it was fun. It was still a sort of like a 1 hour flight, and that's a large chunk of the country covered.
Cool.
Whereas if you go west in Australia from Sydney, you're in for a while.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a sit down.
It's a good 4 hours, 5 hours of flying time.
Yeah, exactly, and usually we don't get that. We don't have those problems. Right. So I think we'll curtail it here. We've been going for a while, and I kind of want my bed because I made the mistake of getting up 18 hours ago because someone's going to give me some money to do it, and I now kind of want my bed back. So I'm going to pretend to get on a train in this, like in the train sim scenario I'm running right now, and I think we'll end it there.
Sounds good. Have a good sleep.
Right. See ya.